I don't think I'd call it boring at all.
What would you call it?
I'd call it responsible, and I would call it a targeted investment in easing cost of living pressures. I don't think it's at all boring that we've got free public transport for kids. I don't think it's at all boring that the $5 prescription charge is gone. These are things that will really help ease the pressure on New Zealanders. The investment in early childhood education is the biggest investment that we have seen in our country in what is a critical thing for our future. So for me, it's a balance. We've got to make sure we are careful with our spending, but we are investing in really important areas.
You're targeting quite a small number of people, quite a small group there with families with a 2-year-old, essentially. So what do you say to other families who are struggling out there in middle New Zealand with the cost of living crisis who don't get any relief?
Well, they do, because we are, for example, taking away that $5 prescription charge. 3 million New Zealanders got prescriptions last year. But we've also got a budget here that sees inflation come down to 3% next year and then 2.5% the year after. That's the thing that's squeezing people. And what we've done in this budget is strike a balance between some investments that can help ease pressure for particularly affected families and individuals, but actually create an environment where New Zealanders are going to see that inflation disappear.
So are you basically saying to the rest of New Zealand, hold on while we watch inflation come down? It has peaked, but I see it's not back to the 2.6% until 2025. That is a long time.
Yeah, but next year 3%, and I think people will really understand and appreciate why that matters. But there's a lot more than that, Rebecca, in this. I mean, we have funded an extraordinary amount of money for the public services New Zealanders use. Our health system, with over $1 billion coming in this term. Transportation and infrastructure, the things people rely on, but also looking ahead, you know, governments have to do that. So we've got a budget here that invests heavily in science and research, the game development sector, the places where jobs are going to be created that will be high wage and low emission. So I think it is a balance, but for those people who have been squeezed, we know that inflation has been their big issue, and this budget sees that come down.
Does this allow, I suppose, as well, some more wriggle room as we get closer to the election for you to be able to perhaps deliver more for those New Zealanders who have missed out today?
Well, again, I'm not sure I buy the framing of the question, but yeah, obviously the election campaign is one where all parties will make their promises about what they want to do over the next few years, and certainly the Labour Party will do that. But one thing I think all parties need to bear in mind is that nearly 79% of the new spending in this budget went on cost pressures, just making things keep going. The room for lots of big discretionary spending and big promises is actually quite limited in the budget that all parties will be looking at.
And so you've been accused by the opposition of this being a budget blowout because of the deficit. They say that that is going to hit, that deficit will hit and be inflationary at exactly the wrong time for New Zealanders when it should be coming down. What's your response to that?
People can't have it both ways, can they?
They always want to.
Yeah, they can't say that there's nothing in it and then say it does too much. Look, the deficit's gone out by 1 year, but I think most New Zealanders will understand that in terms of when we made our projection in December and when we're doing this now, we had the cyclones and we had the floods. They're the second biggest natural disaster in New Zealand's history, and we have to step up. It's our job. So we're spending, you know, the best part of $2 billion already on cyclone recovery, with more to come. That's what changed. It's gone out by 1 year. It's still the same length of time as getting back into surplus after the GFC, and actually COVID was a bigger impact than the GFC.
Were you surprised to see, as many of us were, that Treasury is no longer forecasting a recession and that unemployment will peak lower?
Yeah, so Treasury obviously do their forecasts independently, and what they've looked at is the fact that in the first part of this year we saw tourism come back a lot more strongly, so we saw a bit more demand in the economy, and they're also factoring in the work that goes into the cyclone rebuild and all the activity there. But these things are forecasts, and there are risks on either side of that. But I think it's encouraging for New Zealanders that we're not going to have a deep and prolonged recession, whichever way you look at it. If it did happen, it would be short and shallow, and Treasury are now saying they don't think it will.
If there was one thing that you could have done in this budget, you know, but that you haven't been able to do, can you give us a sense of what that would be?
Oh gosh, it's not one thing, Rebecca. I mean, this is a budget that we've had to deliver that starts to take us back to a more sustainable fiscal position, and that matters for future generations. There are lots of ministers who had lots of great ideas which we weren't able to put in place this year, but it's important we do the right thing by New Zealanders. Invest in a targeted way, ease the cost of living where we can, but make sure we get us ourselves to a point where that inflation comes down. So I'm not going to name one thing. It's like naming your favourite child. I'm not going to do that. But I do know that we've got a budget I think is pretty balanced here.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us here on The Nation. Thank you.